Mitch Trubisky is the most difficult quarterback to figure out in the NFL. It's been a long time since I've studied a player where it's legitimately hard to even guess where he's going to be in 2 years because it's hard to even know where he's at right now. From week to week, quarter to quarter, even snap to snap, Trubisky is so wildly inconsistent that depending on which games you watch, he's either one of the best young quarterbacks in the league or a future backup to Trevor Lawrence. And that inconsistency has made this evaluation extra difficult because I had to watch every single snap he took just to even begin to get a picture of what he actually is. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, Trubisky is both accurate and inaccurate, decisive and indecisive, and both very panicky in low-pressure situations while simultaneously being a stone-cold killer in high-pressure situations. His stats kinda don't make sense at all on the surface, and that's why, to me at least, you can't come to a proper conclusion about Trubisky without looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly on his tape. You have to dive into the frustrating parts of Trubisky before you can really get context for all the good parts that make Bears fans so excited. And so today we're going to at least attempt to do that by going over the 3 things that I think most define Trubisky in positive and negative ways: accuracy, decision-making, and performance under pressure. We'll start off first by looking at accuracy, which was maybe the most difficult trend of his to contextualize on film. I learned some very hard lessons about evaluating accuracy and mechanics a few years ago, and why you should never just outright dismiss accuracy problems as mechanical problems. So I don't want to say that there is a magical fundamental fix for Mitch that will erase all of his bad throws in the future. But that being said, the guy really does have to clean up his hips during his release. He's doing himself no favors with bad mechanics, and if anything, I think bad mechanics just make bad ball placement even worse. There was a throw against the Rams last season that got picked off by Marcus Peters, and it was a good decision for the coverage, mind you, and his intended target, Josh Bellamy, was wide open, so I understand why he attempted the throw in the first place. But on that attempt, Mitch airmailed it by about 4 feet and delivered the ball straight to Peters instead. He wasn't hit during the throw, the pressure wasn't that bad, the ball wasn't tipped, he just flat out missed. And when you look at this pass, mechanically speaking, most of it looked okay. His base is solid, not too narrow, not too wide, so he's not overstriding or understriding when he steps into the throw. His front knee and toe are facing his target, and his off elbow is tight to the ribs and not just flailing wildly like a chicken wing. I mean, this looks, for the most part, like a solid release. But all of the good here is ruined by his bad hips. As a quarterback, when the ball is coming up by the ear hole of your helmet during a pass, you've got to already have your hips fully rotated towards your target. You cannot be dragging that back hip or the back foot so far behind you because hip rotation is huge for generating velocity. You want the hips to lead the arm forward and almost pull that ball out of your hand, not the other way around. Because at the end of the day, your lower body is a hell of a lot stronger than your upper body, so that's where you want to draw the majority of your power from. And if you don't believe me, just look at Peyton Manning and how he made the same kind of throw to his left back in Denver, even though he had obviously considerably less arm strength than Trubisky does. Watch the difference in how Manning generates power with his hips, not his arm, so that he can use his arm more for touch and accuracy. Again, front toe and front knee are open to the target, just like Trubisky, the off elbow is tight to the ribs to maintain balance during hip rotation, and the hips themselves are all the way around before the ball is even out of his hand. He's turning his body into a human whip, with all of that rotational energy traveling from the hips to the arm and out through the ball as it's released. But if you contrast that with Trubisky here, Mitch doesn't get his hips all the way around to the same spot where Peyton's are until after the ball is already gone. That right there is the difference, both in velocity and in control. A mechanically sound quarterback leads with his hips before he releases, and a mechanically messy quarterback follows with his hips after he releases, which causes these overthrows. You see this problem every week with Mitch dragging that back hip during his release. It's not just on this throw, but on every throw in every game. And on all of those bad throws, his power had to come from his throwing arm to still generate velocity. That's really hard to do, even when you're healthy. And so in week 14 against the Rams, when his throwing arm was injured, it was even worse. Remember, he was still coming back from that shoulder injury at the time that he suffered 3 weeks earlier against Minnesota, so in that Rams game, he was putting the entire burden of throwing power on an injured arm rather than just using that arm for touch and control. It's no coincidence that Trubisky's worst game of the year, accuracy-wise, was the one game where his bad mechanics made his injury look and feel even worse. To me, it was straight up hard to watch. But I don't want to give him a blanket excuse though, because even looking at the games before the injury, when he was still healthy, it was the same thing. Bad hips and bad feet equal inconsistent accuracy, and ultimately that fundamental problem, in my belief, is why I don't know what to think of him going forward. He would absolutely nail some of these tough throws on one play and then try to make the exact same throw later in the game and miss it by 5 yards. Even if it was the same play design against the same coverage with the same receiver being wide open by the same amount, if you've got bad mechanics, it's really just a roll of the dice if you're going to make an accurate throw or not. By no means do I think that Mitch is as naturally inaccurate as, say, Christian Hackenberg or Brock Osweiler, but whatever natural touch and feel on these passes that he does have is being neutered by a shitty release, and he's gotta fix it. If not for his own sake, then he's got to at least do it for Anthony Miller's sake, because I felt so bad for that kid being robbed of over 300 extra yards on the season because of bad throws from Mitch. It happened almost every single week. But it doesn't stop there though, because just as inconsistent as his accuracy was on a snap-to-snap basis, so was his decision making. That was my other main problem that I had with him on tape that made me think he still got a long ways to go. For whatever reason, multiple times a game, he would make horrifically boneheaded decisions that would either cost his team big or nearly cost them big. Even if it was a relatively simple route concept that I personally saw him read correctly many times before, every once in a while he would get stuck on those same routine reads and open himself up to disaster for no apparent reason. Take the Seattle concept for example, which is a play design that Matt Nagy got from Andy Reid, who in turn got it from Mike Holmgren back when he was in Green Bay. Seattle is essentially a clear-out concept. It's a staple of the West Coast offense that's been around forever, and when you run it from trips, like the Bears are here, it looks really similar to a sail concept, which I've gone over many times before on this channel. The main difference from sail, though, is that Seattle concepts typically have double posts on the front side acting as the decoys to clear out these deep defenders instead of just a single go route. The inside post route of those two posts is what's called an alert in the play design, and an alert is a route that isn't necessarily the primary read on the play, but it is the first read, because the quarterback has to be alert enough and read it to see if for whatever reason the defense busts their coverage and just lets this route run right behind them. You almost never expect it to be open, but if it is open, you've got to take your shot while you can. So on this play, Mitch gives a quick little glance to the inside post alert to see if it's coming open, which predictably it's not, and then he moves to his actual primary read on the play, which is the deep out route from Trey Burton. Trubisky is essentially reading outside the numbers on the field to see if there's a hang defender that might jump this deep out, whether it's an underneath hook to curl zone defender that can float back to undercut Burton, or a hang defender deep over the top that might come back down to take it away. But luckily for Mitch, there are no hang defenders to speak of that are in range to threaten Burton, so it's a super quick and easy read, and he delivers a great ball to set up Trey for a whole bunch of yards after the catch. This is easy, simple, and perfectly executed, and this is exactly what Matt Nagy expects to happen every time he dials up a Seattle call against zone coverage. But 3 weeks later, somehow Mitch completely broke down while making the exact same read on the exact same play from the exact same formation against New England. Again, that inside post is just the alert here, not the primary read, and he's got his number 3 receiver inside, which is Taylor Gabriel this time, about to break wide open on the out route underneath those double posts. It's the same thing, but for whatever reason, Mitch doesn't come off of the alert like he's supposed to and like he did in the past. Even though that post is bracketed literally the entire time and never even has a chance, Trubisky doesn't actually turn to look at that deep out until Gabriel is already out of his break and has a defender already recovering to come undercut that route. At this point, you can't throw the deep out because the window is closed. It's too late. With how far this ball has to travel, Mitch basically has to throw it right when he hits the top of his drop, which is why that's the designed primary read. He has to make a decision on this route immediately and not be late, or he can't throw it. He just can't. And Mitch knows that he made a mistake because he immediately came off of that late read that he blew and tried to orchestrate a desperation throw to the pylon that was way off script. This play right here, or lack of a play really, cost the Bears at least 15 yards, and the drive stalled into a field goal rather than potentially continuing into something more. All Trubisky had to do was just read the play the same way that he read it every other week, and the same way that every other quarterback in this system has read it for 25 years, and he would have been fine. But for some reason, this is just what he does. At least a few times a game, he takes a simple concept, he overthinks it in his head, trying to decide if he can hit an alert or not when he doesn't even have to. It slows him down, and then he has to try to play hero ball to dig himself out of a hole in the middle of the play, which then causes more terrible mistakes. Overthinking just absolutely cripples his process, and I have no idea where this habit comes from because it shows up at the most random and also the most inconvenient times. You could look at several other examples from throughout the season where he gets positive gains out of this same concept or very similar concepts and he has no trouble with it. But then for whatever reason, Nagy will call it again against the Patriots or the Bills and it totally falls apart. My only theory as to what causes Trubisky's bad decisions, and maybe this sounds weird because I can't think of anyone else who's like this, is that he is a noticeably worse quarterback when everything is going right and a noticeably better quarterback when everything is going wrong. If it's the second or third quarter or the Bears are in the lead and the game is going all according to plan, that's when the mistakes happen. But if it's the fourth quarter and the Bears are down and they need Mitch to have some sort of out-of-body experience and just play on pure instinct, he's amazing. Again, I don't know why, but just observing his entire season, that's the pattern I noticed. And that brings me to the last and maybe the most intriguing positive/negative trend that I documented from last season: how he handles big moments versus how he handles small moments. To me, Trubisky becomes a better passer when he turns off his brain, and he turns off his brain the most when the pressure's on. Just look at the wildcard game against the Eagles, because that's probably the best example I can give for good Mitch versus bad Mitch. With about 6.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, with the Bears in the lead on second down, Nagy dialed up a concept called spot dig from the formation trips left empty F motion. This was by far one of the most common passing plays called by the Bears last year, particularly on second downs, because it was one of their most reliable ways to just get yards against any coverage they faced. And in fact, this was the 5th time they had called this concept just in this game alone by this point. The read on this play for Trubisky is really kind of determined by how the defense responds to Tarik Cohen first and foremost, because he's usually the main threat whenever he's on the field. As Cohen motions out, the only two defenders who respond are Corey Graham and Malcolm Jenkins, who's playing the role of a dime linebacker in this defense. And what this tells Trubisky is that the Eagles are going to be putting a bracket on Cohen inside and out, with both of these DBs to handle the option route that he had been running out of the backfield all day long. They're making it very clear that they're going to be taking away Cohen no matter what, which means Trubisky is going to have free reign to stress every other part of the defense where there are more one-on-ones. So with Cohen getting the double, now this just becomes a game of find the best matchup, and the best matchup left on the field, to me at least, is Allen Robinson running the corner route underneath Avonte Maddox, who's playing really soft so that he doesn't get beat deep. That corner route is a read that you can throw right at the end of your drop so you can get the ball out quickly and safely, you don't have to wait for the dig to develop on the backside, and it's a very safe throw because you know that nobody's going to be floating from underneath to undercut it because Cohen is still drawing that double. So before this ball is even snapped, Mitch has to know, based on his experience of running this play literally every week, and several times already in this same game, that he needs to chuck it up to Robinson right when he hits that last step in his drop. But, of course, he doesn't do that. He looks at the Cohen option route like he always does, freezes up when he's double teamed, and somehow not seeing that coming from a mile away, he never even looks at Robinson before he panics, tries to run, and takes a horribly timed sack that basically ended the drive. After the inevitable punt, Philly would then mount a 12-play drive of their own to take back the lead. Straight up, this was a really bad play, and you could see in real time Mitch overthinking, not seeing the field, and freezing up when his team was in a strong, conservative position where he just wanted to throw an easy little option route for a few yards. It wasn't until his team was in a desperate position, down by 1 with less than a minute to go, that a different Trubisky showed up and made one of his most impressive throws all year, ironically enough, on the exact same play call that he just botched. This was with 44 seconds on the clock now on the ensuing Bears possession, again on 2nd and long, and again Nagy called that old reliable spot dig from gun trips left, this time without the F motion. The Eagles are in another zone defense look, a too high shell to be exact, and Mitch knows that he's got to work the sidelines to preserve the clock as best he can. He can't throw the dig over the middle because they only have one timeout left, and he's got to get a big chunk on this down to try to get into field goal range. The only viable read on this play, just like it was on the previous drive, is the corner route to Robinson, so he's got to take his shot now or never. He may have froze and missed it when not under a ton of pressure before, but in this big moment, the biggest of his career to this point, he let that motherfucker fly and put it right on the money. I mean, this was gorgeous placement. I can't emphasize that enough. Bad mechanics or not, he put that ball in a perfect position while getting totally detonated by Chris Long, by the way, and were it not for Cody Parkey being Cody Parkey a few plays later, this throw would have been remembered as one of the most clutch plays of the year by any quarterback. This pass is why Trubisky is so hard to evaluate, because if he just made that same throw 5 minutes earlier to extend their last drive, he wouldn't have needed to be a hero in the first place. The guy is a master of digging the Bears out of holes late in games because he's fantastic under pressure. But I mean, hell, he's the one who digs half those holes and puts himself under pressure in the first place. He's either pinpoint accurate in making ridiculous throws down the field, or he's putting a screen pass in the dirt. He's either freezing when his first read isn't there and taking a sack, or he's slicing and dicing defenses without hesitation. He's terrible in the second quarter, but phenomenal in the fourth. I don't get it. I really don't. And because of all that, I don't know what to make of him right now. For the first time ever on this channel, I don't know how to project a player going forward. Could he fix his mechanics and become more accurate? Sure, maybe. Could another year in the offense and another offseason with his receivers maybe get rid of those fits of brain freeze that cause terrible decisions? Probably, but will they? I don't know. Right now, today, I can say that Mitch Trubisky is a good quarterback. I 100% believe that. But I can't definitively say that he's ever going to become a great one. To me, he's the kind of guy that you can win a Super Bowl with, or multiple Super Bowls with, if you have a good team around him. You just need enough talent on your roster to survive the problems that come with second quarter Mitch so that the game is close enough for fourth quarter Mitch to win. And if that sounds like a terribly stressful experience to endure every Sunday for Bears fans, well, it is. I'm pretty sure that Trubisky is single-handedly keeping Goose Island in business at this point, but despite all of the mistakes and all of the stress, the Bears do win with Mitch Trubisky, and a lot of those wins are because of him. They come out on top in tough, messy, grimy games that are all about who blinks first, and truthfully, I don't think Chicago would have it any other way because they have a quarterback that doesn't blink first. That's just Bears football to them. Is Mitch perfect? No, and he likely never will be. But I do think that he's perfect for the Bears. And honestly, for now, that is really all that matters. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. It's been a long time coming, so I really do appreciate your support. And I also appreciate the support of the brand that helped make this episode possible, Manscaped. They've been a very loyal sponsor of this channel for a while now, and you guys have done a fantastic job supporting them while they supported me. So I want to let you guys know that if you bought anything from Manscaped in the past with my discounted promo code, or maybe if you're planning on buying anything in the future, Manscaped now has a fully customizable subscription plan called Replenish Plans that let you get even cheaper refills and replacements for any of your favorite products. Whether it's the Crop Cleanser Body Wash, which is the product that I'm subscribed to because it's the only body wash I ever use now, or if you want more anti-chafing deodorant, or cologne, or foot deodorant if you've got stinky shoes, or a replacement blade for your everyday trimmer, even replacement blades for your safety razors as well, which you can get for less than 50 cents a pop. You can pick and choose any items you want at a heavily discounted rate, set how often you want them delivered, and Manscaped will send them to you with 0 shipping fees attached. It's super convenient, the grooming products are great, and the best part is now my wife will never get mad at me for using a different body wash ever again because she really likes the scent of the Crop Cleanser. So if you guys are running low on any Manscaped products, or if you just want to try anything from Manscaped in general to see the quality for yourself, head to the link in the description below and use promo code BRETT20 for 20% off your order, and of course, free shipping. I promise you won't regret it. As for me and the channel, I also want to let you guys know that it's time for another patron-only Q&A now that my long, arduous move is over and I'm settling back into a routine. So if you're a Patreon supporter, even if you're only giving as low as $1 a month, you can go check that out and ask me anything you want about any subject you want and I'll answer it. And if you're not a patron, well, that's okay. It's your money, you can do whatever you want with it, so just keep on doing what you're doing. Keep in mind that we are right around the corner from fantasy football draft season, so I'll have my fantasy rankings for both PPR and non-PPR formats coming out soon. Expect the first version of that to drop sometime in the first week of August, and I'll also, of course, be back sometime in the next couple weeks with another full Film Room episode. No idea which subject I'll be taking on yet, but I'm kind of figuring that out as I go. So, I'll see you guys soon with something, and until then, later.